And my name is Tarishi Kaushik, and I'm working as a research associate at the Energy and Resources Institute at TERI. It is my pleasure to welcome all our esteemed panelists and the audience to the launch of the guidelines on water efficient measures for residential townships. I would now request Mr. Sanjay Seth, Senior Director at TERI, to give the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tarishi, and welcome to all my esteemed panelists who have gathered here today on this, what should we call it, an auspicious day, because it's the uh, World Water Day, and I think even in all our religious activities, water plays a very important role. Huh? So I think it's really a diminishing resource, and let's all be reminded of how this resource is really getting depleted, and we really need to take care of it. So, on my own behalf, I welcome you, and I also kind of wish ourselves well on the World Water Day. Um, and I hope that we are able to convey this important message of conservation and also looking at the supply demand challenges that one is hearing. I think every day we hear it in some part of the world uh, on how the consumption levels are really going up and the resources diminishing. We at TERI have, as an organization which looks at various things multidimensional across all segments of the economy. I think we are probably, perceived as an agent of change in the energy, environment, climate change, and sustainability space. And we are very glad to kind of see the work that we are doing together with the Mahindra Lifespaces on the Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence that has been established. And of course, among the various other things that we do, we are also, we look after the element water as an important area of our work. And some of it has already been done in the past, and we have achieved success. And now we are kind of in the implementation phase. And yet today, we are also talking of another set of guidelines which we are going to launch today on water efficient measures for the residential townships. And what better than an agency such as Mahindra Lifespaces, who are in this business of developing townships and residential houses, to remind both, so here we see a conglomeration of the developer community, the architect, and the people who really go into the creation of these townships, together with the end users who are eventually going to be staying out of this, how we all come together and work towards making sure that this the depleting resource is managed efficiently. So that's the idea. Let me just kind of talk a little bit about also on the research that we are doing together. Our research and research-based solutions have had a transformative impact on the industry as well as communities. We have fostered international collaborations on sustainability by creating a number of platforms and forums. We do this by translating our research into technology, products, technical services, as well as policy advocacy and outreach, enhancing conservation, utilization of resources, and access to, for the efficient management of resources, including water, the subject that we are handling today, including the watershed management, are some of the most important goals that TERI is currently working on. We would also like to, I would also like to kind of talk about a little bit on what we at the Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence are doing. We are kind of through our research activities providing credible information, and providing science-based solutions for the built environment. And all of this is necessitated because of the rampant urbanization that one is seeing. And I'm sure that our esteemed panelists will have a lot to add during the panel discussions as to why I think every platform that we talk on does live on these matters and spends a little bit of time discussing these issues. I think more importantly, as we have given our commitment to the global community in terms of going carbon neutral by 2070, and obviously it's going to be, ratcheting up in phases. And we have some things which have been highlighted in the intermediary in 2040 and all of that. So all of this, I think all of us have to play an important role in this, all stakeholders, right from the consumers and to the people who are developing, in the business of developing these townships or working on the urban planning, all of that, I think architects, engineers, we all have a part to play. And I'm sure that we would be able to kind of provide these solutions through interactive platforms such as these. I am also very glad to inform you that some of the work that we have already done. In fact, the first phase of our partnership between Mahindra Lifespaces and TERI that's come to an end this the last actually the last calendar year, but we will be formally closing it by the this financial year within this financial year. And all of this work that was done and the outcomes in the forms of guidebooks, design guidelines, tools and toolkits that were developed, all of them have really been kind of found value by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. We had the Secretary himself launching all of these as an outcome of the work that being done on the two sides. And then very, and the message that he gave at the launch was that it's very heartening to note that we have a developer on the other side who's willing to kind of correlate it and kind of validate it in terms of their own projects. So that's something. So the research outcomes being validated on site, that is really what one needs to really see. I'm also very pleased to inform you that there is yet another corporate group which has come together with TERI, the Vedanta group, which has collaborated on the recently concluded World Sustainable Development Summit platform. And what they have looked up to TERI, the vision statement for this collaboration is that we will provide them work towards sustainable use of resources for a resilient planet through transformative actions. So that is, what we are going to be working on. And again, in some of the areas that the two organizations will be working on, one of them is, of course, wastewater and water. These are waste management, water, and also the wastewater. So effluent, all of that, I think, becomes an integral part of the collaboration that we are looking at. So coming back, I don't think so that I think, Tarishi, you would be probably talking more on what we are really releasing today. But the guidelines, just to not to be stealing away your thunder, I would just want to limit myself to say that the guidelines being released today and the work that has been done in the past, you have looked at both the micro as well as the macro level. And I hope that the presentation that is going to follow, which is going to be given by Tarishi, I think that will capture the essence of the work that we have done together. So with those words, I thank you all for making it on this platform. I hope and I'm sure that we will see physical events more in the year ahead. Of course, we had since on the not on the TERI side, but on the GRIA side, we've already done an event which was inaugurated and by the Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. We did that in December. And then thereafter, again, we had the third wave. Not that we were responsible for the third wave, we were all fine. But yes, we are looking forward to many more such physical events and hope that we do away with this, seeing each other on platforms like this on the screens and talking to each other. I would much rather have you in person here or in some good location where we can probably discuss this in greater detail. So thank you very much for joining, and once again, all good wishes on this auspicious day. Thank you, Tanish.
Thank you, sir. I would now request Mr. Viral Oza, Chief Marketing Officer, Mahindra Lifespaces, to give the welcome remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tarashi. Good afternoon, everyone. A healthy natural environment leads to a stable and productive society. Today is World Water Day, which is celebrated to raise awareness about taking action to tackle the global water crisis and to make people understand the importance of water conservation, which is essentially just wise management and utilization of water resources. As we look around us today, residential townships are mushrooming due to an increased demand by growing population and specifically in some metros due to urbanization. This has made it all the more critical today to ensure that residences use and manage water sustainably. So it's important to draw attention and spread awareness about the best practices to protect these resources and encourage the right use to achieve water sustainability, especially in townships. At Mahindra Life Spaces, it is our constant endeavor to transform India's urban landscape in a sustainable manner by innovating and adopting the most relevant practices. Um, as somebody who's pioneered green homes with a 100% green portfolio across India since 2014, we are committed to a collaborative and research driven approach towards sustainable lifestyles and practices. And the Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence, a joint research initiative of Mahindra Life Spaces and the Energy Resources Institute, aims to develop exactly these kinds of science based solutions for India's built environment. On this important occasion, we and the Sustainable Habitat Program of TERI are jointly releasing this guidelines on water efficient measures for residential townships, in keeping with the theme of the World Water Day, to spread awareness about the best practices and efficient management in residential townships. As populations continue to boom along with rapid urbanization, there is a growing need for accommodating the rise to this new type of developments, self sustainable developments called townships. And these are mushrooming at a rapid pace in and around cities. Globally, the impact on the use of water is a reality, and we must recognize that such expansion of residential townships will create an even or exert an even greater impact on an already stretched resource. So this requires urgent action, and it's become critical for not only the developer community but also residents to use and manage water sustainably. Since the concept developed in the early 90s, developers across the country have redefined the township model from being project based to practically city level townships as the market demands changed. But with the emerging ESG mandate in corporate India, this has made many corporates become conscious and embark on the road to sustainability. Companies have started gradually incorporating SDGs into their responsible business actions, and achieving water self sufficiency is one of these key action themes. With growing environmental concerns, buyers too are increasingly interested in homes equipped with water saving technologies. So, for all these reasons and more, sustainable water use in habitats is one of the key areas of research for the Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence. In this context, the activity on sustainable water use in habitats was envisioned to look at a holistic way of managing water with a premise of sustained availability for all its consumers. And Mr. Seth mentioned the study being conducted on micro and macro levels, right at a micro level of residential townships and a macro level of cities like Chennai, Gurugram, etc. Um, and based on the findings of these studies, we found that there is a need for help, for guidance, and online tools which could facilitate the users to estimate what the water systems are and the requirements of this site. Today, the engagement of all segments, such as consumers, financiers, developers, corporates, has increased, and we all have a role to play in achieving sustainable water use. While corporates and developers do this through use of advanced technology, innovations, as a result of these collaborations, consumers need to understand and carry this forward by re examining and changing their habits, as well as demand more from the real estate industry in terms of action for a sustainable future. With 70% of the built environment requirement for between now and 2050 yet to be built, there is hope that if all of us put our shoulders to the wheel, I'm confident that we will achieve our goals that lead to a more sustainable use of a precious resource like water. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your address. I would now request all our esteemed panelists to give a go ahead to launch the report.
Maybe also have them on with their cameras on. Gurmeet, if you could, yeah, oh, that's lovely to see you. Hi, Gurmeet, how are you? And how are we going to, Tarishi, how are we going to launch it? Is it?
Sir, through a video.
Okay.
So I would like to inform everyone that this report, which has been just launched, it will be available for the public to access on the TERI's website. And we would be sharing this report with all of you post the webinar. So before we move on to the presentation, I would like to ask Mr. Seth, sir. Sir, would you be continuing with us?
So, Tarishi, I'm going to step out, but as and when I'll join in. Don't worry, it's going to be on. I have another meeting
Okay.
next week, but I'll be here. You are in safe hands with all these lovely panelists that you have. So don't worry. You've got developers, you've got Gurmeet there, you've got Sanita, Mr. Subramaniam, all of them. I think you're in safe hands. So they'll steer you through the panel discussion very well.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we will now move on with a brief presentation explaining the guidelines. I will share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, actually. You can put it in the slide mode.
Okay, okay. Okay, so in the context of extreme neglect, unsustainable consumption, and poor management of the water resources throughout the world, it can be established that the water today, from being a ubiquitous resource, it has become a precious one. Water is a unique resource and has no substitutes or alternatives. Over the years, the overutilization of water resources, pollution of river systems, lack of water treatment facilities, they have aggravated the already existing water crisis in the country. This, coupled with the climate change, it is going to make the water shortage even more severe in coming years due to the alteration of in the rainfall patterns in the country, and thus unbalancing the water demand and supply. So if you look at the some of the statistics related to some of the pertinent water related problems in terms of availability, demand, and supply, like in these graphs, in the first graph, it shows the per capita water availability in the country. It is on a decline since year 2001. India, as of today, it is already water stressed with the annual per capita water availability dropping to 1544 cubic meters, 1544 cubic meters in the year 2011, which was less than the global standard of 1700 cubic meters. It is estimated that by the year 2050, the water availability will further decline to 1140 cubic meters, which is going to be quite close to the official water scarcity threshold of 1000 cubic meters. So this clearly shows that in years ahead of 2050, the country might cross the threshold and become a water scarce region. Many estimates of future water use, they have greatly exceeded the actual water withdrawals. In the second graph, it represents water demand and supply scenario in the Indian cities. In the year 2008, the water demand was being met by adequate water supply, but it is estimated that by year 2030, the water demand is going to exceed the supply by two folds. So, in this context, under the Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence, we have one of the verticals, which is sustainable water use and habitats. So, this was envisioned, this activity was envisioned to look at a holistic way of managing the water within a premise for sustained availability for all its consumers. And this research at Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence on sustainable use of water and habitats, this is aligned to Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 6, which is sustainable water use adopted by the United Nations. And it is at the national level, it is also aligned with one of the goals, Goal 4, which is increasing water use efficiency by 20%, which is identified under this mission. So, under this activity, we had conducted basically the study at two levels. One was at the micro level, which was at a building at the site level, in which we basically carried out the rapid water audits of various residential townships across the country. And the other study was at the macro level, which was at a regional, at a city level. In this, we had carried out the water sustainability assessment of three cities, Chennai, Gurugram, and Pune. So, in fact, after completing the study of these three cities, we had launched these reports in the various webinars last year, which saw the participation of various stakeholders from various domains, such as real estate developers, architects, engineers, metro boards, NGOs, researchers, to discuss the challenges and opportunities on water sustainability in these cities. So basically, if we look at this, depending on the study that we had conducted, based on this study, we found out that there was a need of some ready reference guide, like guidelines or manuals or water tools, which could help the users, the building professionals, to estimate the water system related requirements of their particular project. Today, this engagement of all the socioeconomic segments, it has increased a lot. And therefore, deriving from this study, we plan to basically develop a guideline on water efficient measures for residential townships. And the other one was to develop an online water calculator, which was launched last year in November. So briefly talking about this water calculator, basically this is a decision support tool, which can be used by the homeowners, building professionals, infrastructure developers to assess their water efficiencies and savings. in their residential projects. The calculator, it assists in determining the project's water demand and the potential for achieving the water savings to carry out the sustainable management on the site. So we had developed the first part of the calculator, which is known as the rainwater management and design calculator for storage and groundwater recharge. So basically this calculator, it helps the user to estimate the amount of rainfall that can be harvested for either for reuse or for groundwater recharge, depending upon their sites across various cities in India. It also facilitates the user to design the capacity of the rainwater storage tank, which is required, the potential for reduction in fresh water demand. This calculator also helps to check the design of the groundwater recharge structures of your site, whether they are enough or not, and how can we make the sites basically a zero stormwater discharge site. So this was basically the aim of this calculator. Now, moving on to our second outcome, which was the guidelines that we have launched today. So basically, this document, it lays down a set of guidelines uh, on ways to how can we overcome the challenges related to water conservation and achieving water efficiency in a residential township. So it is basically a help guide which can help townships to move on the path of becoming net water positive, that is reducing the dependency on the fresh water supplies. Um, and the measures that have been listed in the document, in this guidelines, they are innovative, they're practical, they're very easy to implement, low cost solutions. And they have been developed after conducting a very thorough research, literature review, and of course water audits of several townships across the country, um, to understand basically the issues and then design the solutions accordingly, which have been mentioned in this guideline. So this guide is basically meant to assist the building practitioners and the urban local bodies, residents, users in the water sector to plan and implement projects with an aim of achieving the sustainability. This guide is basically an attempt to mainstream water efficiency, conservation from the policy to practice. So its thematic areas in this guideline, it basically includes the in situ water augmentation, water efficiency, water conservation, operation and maintenance, and behavioral changes, with new inventions introduced, and effectiveness of measures that can be implemented at different scales on the site. So, so basically, the unique thing about this guidelines is that we have developed a 3-point approach system, which basically focuses on basically three things: on reducing sites' water usage, harnessing the alternative sources of water, and designing the green infrastructure, which can be easily included in buildings, in new buildings, or retrofitted to the old ones for establishing water efficient residential townships and also improving the user behavior. So basically, the first one, which is the reducing water usage, this basically means that to the extent possible, facilities first should try to decrease their need of the water by increasing efficiency and reduce the total water volume used within the project. Using water efficient fixtures, appliances, efficient irrigation equipment, sustainable land use designs, solutions, enhancing operation and maintenance of the water systems installed on the site. These measures can help in reducing the water usage drastically. The second point was the harnessing the alternative water sources. Now, once efficiency has been optimized, facilities should maximize the use of water that is collected, purified, used, and reused on the site and building. So basically, harnessing alternative water sources This can happen at two levels. One is at your building level, and one is at the site level, the landscape level. Now, some of the major alternatives for water can be your harvested rainwater. It can be your treated wastewater. So this collect and treat strategy, it minimizes the treatment and transport losses. In addition, it also reduces the overall energy expended in the in processing and conveyance. It also contributes in decreasing the dependence on the freshwater supply. Thus, it reduces the stress on the water resources. The third point is the integration of green infrastructure to reduce stormwater management, stormwater runoff. So the third domain in the 3-point approach, it basically focuses on reducing the stormwater runoff, which forms the one of the major reasons for the occurrence of water loss from any facility. Now, as we continue to uh, replace forests and green fields with buildings and pavements and other infrastructure, the rainwater which runs off from these surfaces, such as roofs and the pavements, they pick up they pick up all kinds of trash, bacteria, fertilizer, pesticides, dirt, oil, etc., and other all sorts of pollutants, and it makes its way towards the stormwater drains. And this untreated runoff, it is further diverted into the larger bodies such as streams, rivers, lakes, and oceans. So this stormwater runoff, it becomes one of the major causes of water pollution and flooding also in the cities. So to counter the negative impact, um, uh, integrating customized green infrastructure solutions on the site, such as rain gardens, permeable pavements, bioswales, green roofs, infiltration planters, rainwater harvesting systems, so etc. They can help stormwater to infiltrate to the original water source on the site itself. This is not only substantially this cannot only substantially reduce the flooding issue, but also it prevents polluted runoff from reaching to the sewer system or to the surface water systems like lakes, oceans, rivers to a very great extent.
Harishi, sorry to interrupt, but your slides are not actually moving.
Uh,
So
which
we've
you
so
okay?
yeah.
We can see this is the third or fourth slide, right?
So you're now on guidelines on water efficient. Yeah. So moving to the next one.
This is which, ma'am, I am on slide 7, in which there is the cover page of the guidelines. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see.
Now I have changed the slide.
Yeah, that I can see. So I was just wondering a lot of whether the slides are moving or not. Anyway.
Okay, I'm changing again.
Yeah, it's now reflecting. Maybe it's my system. I don't know.
Okay. So then the measures which we have developed using this 3-point approach for achieving the water efficiency in the residential townships. Now this can be categorized into 3 areas. We have categorized this into 3 areas. There is sustainable design and technological interventions at various stages of the project, be it is a new building, a new design, or are you retrofitting to the existing building. The second is operation, during the operation and maintenance stage, and the third is the user behavioral changes. So these are the 3 areas. Now, in order to basically delve deeper into these measures that we have listed in the document, in the guideline document, and a lot of various Indian and international case studies have also been covered to understand these measures more accurately. So I would request everyone to kindly go through this guideline, which is now live on the TERI's website. Thank you so much. So with this, we have come to the end of the presentation, and now we will move forward with the panel discussion. But before that, I would request all the speakers to kindly switch on their videos so that we can take a group photograph. Joseph, kindly take a group photograph.
Yes, sure. So, Sid, can you switch on camera? But he's not in the picture now.
I think he's not there.
No, I'm there, very much there.
Is there? Thank you, sir. You're taking one for picture.
Oh, yes, of course. Why not? Just tell me when you want, when we are all ready. Okay, where is Viral? Viral is not there.
I think he has left.
He's
Okay,
left.
doesn't matter. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. Photoshop करके विरल की भी लगा देना फिर.
Yes, sure. Sir.
Thank you so much. I would now request Dr. Sunita Purushottam, Head of Sustainability at Mahindra Lifespaces, who is also the moderator of the session today, to please take the panel discussion forward. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Tarishi, but I would request you to actually introduce all the panelists and then hand it over.
Okay. So basically today we have Mr. H for the panel discussion. We have Mr. H. Subramaniam. He is the Executive Director, Fitner Consulting Engineers India Private Limited, Chennai. Welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Sandeep Sonegra. He's the co-founder, Orange County Group, Pune. Welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Gurmeet Singh. He is the National President of Indian Plumbing Association, and also he's also the National Chairman, CII, Indian Green Building Council. Welcome, sir. And we also have Mr. Akashdeep. He is the Senior Manager at Griha Council. I welcome all of you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So I was wondering whether we should begin with a poem. So welcome all of you, all the esteemed panelists today. So World Water Day, 22nd March, and we would like to share with everybody the theme for 2022 World Water Day. It is groundwater, making the invisible visible. Okay, so groundwater is not actually visible for most of us, but we draw a lot of this groundwater. It is invisible, but its impact is visible everywhere. Out of sight, under our feet, groundwater is a hidden treasure that enriches our lives. Almost all of the liquid freshwater in the world is groundwater. And as climate change gets worse, groundwater will become more and more critical. We need to work together to sustainably manage this precious resource. Groundwater may be out of sight, but it must never be out of our mind. So making the invisible visible is very, very critical. So the more we talk about it, uh, you know, so and share case studies of how we can enhance groundwater, and there are various measures that she referred to it, and many of these measures are there in the guideline document that has been put together. So with that, we will begin today's panel discussion. So the first question I would like to pose to Akash, and this is in context of several certification programs are now introducing water positive certifications, which helps in pushing the initiative of achieving water sustainability by facilities. So, how do you think these rating bodies can help promote water sustainability in residential buildings, given that there are challenges in residential because of the overall consumption? So, Akash, over to you on this starting question.
Thank you, ma'am. And very important point with regards to residential auditing and certification, because especially when the residential projects, one of the major challenge in certification which we feel is the ownership transfer, which happens. The developer giving the systems to the people who are using it, then user understanding these systems is a challenge, and then further operating and maintaining these systems is the second most challenge basically. And when you are assessing their sustainability as a whole, all these steps become very important in terms of not just water as a sustainability as a whole. all systems which we provide as a developer to these users. And that knowledge transfer is the one gap which we see in certification. And recently, the certification process, especially on water and other certification processes also, which we have developed, there's an extra added last step or last mile connectivity which has been added into the whole process, which is basically accounts to the user awareness. So now even if you get in a residential project, you get a rating, one of the important part is whoever is using this building, they needs to be educated how to use this building. That is one of the important part with sustainable systems basically. And that's one of the things which we have added into the whole rating process also. Especially in water, when we say water positivity certification, which we have released most recently, what we have seen is there's a challenge with residential societies in terms of system maintenance, because there are systems in residential, for example, as simple as low flow fixtures. It has a very huge impact if it is used efficiently. But cleaning of these systems on a regular basis is very important, which I don't think so we can depend on the operation maintenance team. But as a user myself, I have to be aware how to, why it is there, first of all. Second, how to clean these systems. So all this recommendations, the certification bodies helps you make sure that these things are properly implemented and further maintained by the RWA societies. So their participation is important in the certification process as well as understanding the owner of the projects.
Thank you, Akash, for bringing those aspects to notice. So the second question I would like to pose to Mr. Gurmeet Singh Arora. And when it comes to best practices and water efficient technological interventions for managing water demand, you know, is there a need for updating the NBC and the Central Public Health and Environmental Engineering Organization's standard documents that are laid out so that we can enhance the best practices in buildings? So over to you, Mr. Arora.
Yes, Dr. Sunita, first premise of mine is what you can measure, you can monitor. So if you cannot measure your consumption, you cannot monitor it. Having said that, we have been working with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and I am an advisor and a collaborator on two fronts. One is on 100 innovation water challenge, 100 companies, which are being funded 20 crores by the ministry on new innovations on how to augment water supply, treat water, rainwater, different methods of rainwater harvesting, creating water from the atmosphere by condensation. IIT Chennai, some students have done something on it. So we are already working on that, and there is a grant of 20 lakhs per company. Last week only I attended the presentation of 30 such companies in New Delhi with the ministry and our minister, Dr. Hardeep Singh Puri ji. So that is one thing. And second thing, we are working with the ministry now, and we have come to a stage where the ministry will specify water efficient fixture units and sanitary ware, where we will save 30 to 40% water at source. Now, where I stay in my own building also, I am also in charge of renovation in that building. And we put 200 toilets, we put aerators. Aerators are not the solution. Indian Plumbing Association, by supplying aerators in 2019, was able to save 133 crore liters of water. And this is a cumulative saving. Target is 500 crore liters this year. We had to stop the campaign because of requirements of COVID-19, hand washing, hygiene, and health, where everything water is required. But this year we are going to save 500 liters. Having said that, now what we are working is with the sanitary ware and fixture fitting manufacturers. We have already had one meeting with them 2 weeks back and one meeting with the ministry, where taps, stopcocks, fixture units, and sanitary ware will be built with water saving inbuilt without an aerator. Now, having said that, we have to also have a IS code, BIS code. We already have a code which we launched in 2014. It's called the Water Efficient Products India code where you have 5-star rating, 1 to 5-star rating, and you are able to save from 25% water to even 60% water in fixture units, in sanitary ware, in clothes and dishwashers. Of course, for the ministry, we needed Indian codes. These are codes from USA, where revised in 2014-17 and undergoing a revision now in 2022. Recently, last month, the BIS launched 2 codes. One is the IS 17650 Part 1 and IS 7650 Part 2, which is for sanitary ware and sanitary fittings. So we now have an Indian code which is aligned to this code, and we are able to now save water at source. At the same time, as I told you, that the green rating agencies have brought about a lot of focus. When I joined the IGBC in 2001, there was no focus on water at all. The main focus was on what you can save by money, energy, some materials, not even sustainable materials being used at that time. And, a Green Pro rating, Green Product rating also, you must be aware of, Dr. Sunita came about much later. And but now the focus on water has really come about a lot, because India has 17% of the world's population and only 4% of its fresh water. So whether we talk of groundwater, fresh water, let me tell you, Singapore treats flush black water, puts it in a bottle, and you and I go and drink that water called new. And here we get scared even to treat grey water. And Akashdeep said, how will we maintain the system? There is a problem. But do we have a choice? Do we really have a choice? Because we are not going to leave behind any fresh water, at least in our country, for our children and their children to come. So I do not think whether you're a builder, consumer, user, you have no choice. You have to respect water. I want to ask you one question. I want to reverse now the panel discussion, Dr. Sunita. Do you sing under your shower? Tell me the truth. Do you sing under your shower?
Not really.
You know, people think they are Mohammed Rafi or Lata Mangeshkar, and they waste 50 liters of water under their shower. People should come out, stand on your damn bed or your sofa and sing as much as you want in your house. But please do not sing under your shower. I have a friend who treats his WC, his potty, as an ashtray. And then every time he puts that cigarette butt, he has to flush 5-6 times because that cotton bud doesn't go through, unless it soaks water. So there are certain things we have to, you see, the most important thing, I'm sorry I'm going on, but if you don't mind, can I go on for 2 minutes more?
Yeah, please.
You see, none of you know what your real water footprint is.
True. That's true.
Mr. Sandeep, do you know what your water footprint is?
He knows.
What? You don't know. Did you know this cell phone takes 2,500 liters to make? And my children want to change one cell phone every year, and they throw it like this, like a dirty toy. Did you know a t-shirt takes 1,500 liters of water to make? A kg of rice takes 1,300 kilos. A kg of wheat takes 900 kilos, what we call virtual water. We talk in this green building movement embodied energy. When are we going to start talking about embedded water? Because we do not realize the products we use. Can we, for the next 6 months, not buy any clothes and decide to wear the same clothes? I'm sure we won't look shabby. Every time I went on stage, I wanted a new shirt. And therefore, if I went on stage in one conference 5 times, I would have 5 new shirts. Rubbish, right? So there is a water footprint in everything that we use, everything that we consume. Okay, it's called virtual water. Our real water footprint we are not aware of. My municipal corporation in Mumbai only gives me 90 liters of water per head per day to a maximum of 5 occupants. So what does the builder do? He makes 2 doors. One servant quarter door, one main door, puts an invisible wall in between and gets 900 liters coming. This has to stop here. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. So many pertinent points, actually. And in my mind, I was thinking, I have to catch up with you on this topic, this topic, this topic, and all the topics, all pertinent
And not to sing under your shower.
Definitely. Definitely. So awesome. So you brought that whole water challenge out there, and to the important point you said that there are guidebooks that can augment the guidebook that we have made. Our guidebook is quite at a high level, and the water efficient product guidebooks definitely will augment. I mean, it had come earlier, and it should be used by the MEP people in the organizations to design and choose the products, and it's very important. So you've raised a lot of pertinent points, right from design to how the user behavior should be, and therefore touching upon the other invisible water, which is the virtual water, which we don't really talk about, and which impacts every type of water that we use, right? So, very, very pertinent points. So, thank you for your comments. So, the next question I would like to pose to Mr. Sandeep, uh, that how can townships and housing societies become water secure? What is the role that resident welfare association and citizens can play? I have read through examples where citizens, RWAs together have achieved this through a combination of metering, treating tertiary water, demand reduction. So, what, in your view, can make this into a movement where townships can become water secure? So, over to you, Mr. Sandeep.
Thank you. What we have did, I would like to share. It's like take a participation of each and every person, right from child to the everyone in the family. So we have a project recently completed that's called Royal Orange County, which is a 350 apartments. So when we were maintaining it initially, in initial 5 years phases, so we were writing on ground floor, there was a chart, and there was water as we had metering done at every places wherever possible. So we're publishing those reports every day, every 24 hours. What is the water footprint? Per building and per apartment, per person, what is coming? And that was communicated to each and every person on the ground floor lobby where everyone comes. So similarly, we started, it was initially for the energy. It became quite success. So after that, we decided now let's have the same thing done with the water. And so we published that kind of data charts showing each and every day, every 24 hours. And then we find out such a drastic, what you can say, in the same locality, but different building consuming, say if 135 is the benchmark, some building consuming 200 liters and some building consuming 90 liters. So it was within the same locality, having same background of the people, but still variation was so drastic variation. So then again, we had this kind of continuous publishing data for almost a year. After that, it became almost parallel that everyone came to the same benchmark of 135 or less than that. So this was achieved after a year. And that for that, these data helped a lot, because then whichever building has a footprint more than, they were always coming to us and then checking each and every time why the footprint is more. So this kind of data publishing, gathering and data publishing with the all other aspect, that means right from metering or faucets or even treating the wastewater, reusing it, all combined together, almost everyone does it. But data is most important, communication of data to the all stakeholder and even to the child. And then there are some events where like water days, for example, and then that was celebrated in the society resident welfare association, who is having a least water footprint. So that kind of the communication, that kind of the some kind of those who are using less, they are immediately noticed, and that helped a lot. And I think this has to be somewhere we have to do while designing building itself. Because that we find this entire project we had two phases. The phase one, we had a different kind of architectural planning. And the phase two had a different kind of architectural planning. We had a mandate to architect that each and every flat, I should be able to measure water of each and every apartment. So it was not a building, but per apartment. So we have to change the water design. And then my plumbing for next phase was like that. On a single line, on a single wall, all plumbing related aspect were taken care. And so that if my single inlet is there, I could measure it on all 100 apartments. So that is the drastic, what you can say, a change in the architectural plan, which we had done. And we are really finding it very beautiful. So when next level, when we are coming with the township, we are planning that each and every apartment level water metering has to be done and then published accordingly. Whether it is charged or not charged, that is not important, but publishing the data, like we were publishing data for each apartment of electricity. So if it is zero electricity, 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 units, 24 hours. Similar kind of a data per apartment, if it is published on the ground floor, those who are below the mark, they were marked in a green, and those who are above like a red. So just kind of a red and green give a tremendous good, what you can say, result. And that is what I think it has to be practiced in a lot and more. That's my suggestion.
Awesome. So that's awesome. In fact, I would love to come and visit and see how it has been deployed. And you touched upon design, and that the MEP design itself for every apartment has to be amended.
I'm not talking about MEP only. It starts with architectural design.
Architecture,
Yeah.
architecture. Yes. So how do you design it in such a way so that you can meter it at one inlet? There is one inlet. It's like energy meters that only one house has 1 meter and you take it. Awesome. So with that, we move to Mr. Subramaniam. And if you could shed light on the different types of water treatment technologies, there are those which consume less energy. There are those which are low carbon water treatment, getting very popular these days. Some housing societies are deploying it. But it's not become that commonplace that most residential housing societies have a eco STP. So I would like to understand from the perspective of water treatment, wastewater treatment, one angle about the different types of technologies. Does one technology meet the requirement throughout the country? That's one question number one. So this is going to be loaded. Then the second is, can we redesign systems? We are continuously over designing systems. So that's question number two. Both of them are loaded questions because we fall into this trap of going for the environmental clearance and say that no, we will design like this only. And there is a trap. There is a number that is given that this much a number of population, this much. So all those calculations I feel are very entrapping. So how do we overcome this? It's a double bind kind of a situation. We are not able to resize. You're not able to convince the MOEF. Then there are local bylaws. How do you overcome all of these challenges from a water treatment perspective?
Thank you, Dr. Sunita. I congratulate TERI and Mahindra Lifespaces on this new guideline for water efficient measures for residential townships that has come out, and look forward to jumping into the document and reading more in detail in terms of what all issues have been covered in that. I think before I answer your question, Dr. Sunita, I wanted to give a little bit of a more macro perspective on water. And humbly stating that the overall water challenge in India has never been one of lack of water supply. There's always been predominantly a demand-driven issue. And my favorite quote is one by Gandhiji, made nearly 80 years back, that he said there is enough water for everyone's need, not enough for anyone's greed. And that sort of holds true into all discussions on water and wastewater management that we often have. And therefore, I'm very sure that even if we build 10 more desalination and water treatment plants, and we have huge rains, still water is going to continue to be a problem for years to come unless we are able to address the issue on the demand side and we manage water more efficiently. And therefore, the whole idea of guidelines on water efficiency is something that is close to my heart. From a macro perspective, if one looks at, I think, the data points or figures that are spoken about, around 600 million Indians are currently facing high to extreme water crisis currently. And there is a report that 40% of India's population currently may have no access to drinking water by 2030. And in the context of groundwater being the theme for the current year and session, I think more groundwater is extracted from in India than in China and US put together, as I learned recently through a study brought out by UN. So India extracts more groundwater than any other part of the world, any other country in the world, most definitely. And therefore, the fall in the groundwater table in India is more drastic than any other part of the world. And it is expected that this water crisis, which is clearly impending, is likely to cause nearly a 6% loss in the GDP of country unless there is an address of this problem. Now, to more specifically answer the question, Dr. Sunita, that you were asking me, I think there are a variety of wastewater treatment and reuse technologies that are currently available to us, and many of them have been tried out and tested in the Indian market for various residential and commercial buildings. And predominantly, I think most of these successful technologies which we have used and successfully implemented are basically biological treatment technologies based on aeration. I think aerobic technologies have clearly been found to be the most effective for the capacity of plants that we are talking of and the treatment output that we are looking for. So even though there are other variants in the form of chemical treatment technologies or anaerobic or other technologies which are available, the ones which are most widely used in India as well as in other developing markets are predominantly biological treatment technologies based on aerobic solutions. And the commonly available technologies that are predominantly used in India typically include moving bed bioreactors or MBBR. It includes sequential batch reactor or SBR technologies. And then the more recent and widely used membrane bioreactor technologies, which use a membrane in a submerged form for treating the water and producing high quality water, which can be used for all kinds of non-potable requirements. Now, all of these to me are basically variants. So in terms of energy consumption, I think per se from a technology point of view, I would not say that one is better than the other. So the improvements from an energy efficiency or from other viewpoints in these technologies need to be brought out in the form of selection of the equipments that are going in. So whether it is pumps, whether it is blowers, whether it is other equipments, one needs to ensure that more energy efficient equipments are being used, selected and designed in the system. And then you have better automation in the whole system. So a variety of automation in terms of sensing the oxygen demand or looking at other parameters by which the pumps and the blowers can then be controlled through the feedback mechanism would help in sizable savings of energy. I think typically in most wastewater systems, recycling systems, what we suggest is that an expert should be involved in terms of understanding the requirement, looking at the wastewater parameters, looking at what the reused water has to be used for, whether it is for gardening, whether it is for washing and cleaning, whether it is for toilet flushing, whether it is for other applications within the residential complex. And parameters or aspects like space availability or height availability often come into play in terms of the selection of the most appropriate technology. So per se, to me, coming back, I would say technology is available. And again, the trend there is now increasingly moving towards more prefabricated solutions or more pre-designed kind of a solution so that the construction at site can be speeded up. On the other point that you were mentioning in terms of one often oversizing the systems in these units, I think the solution to that is invariably to move towards more modular solutions Because invariably in most buildings, what one finds is that the occupancy levels builds up over time, and therefore designing a system for the final or ultimate load often ends in terms of the system then working at a very low level of utilization and therefore consuming a lot of energy or leading to a lot of waste. So more modular kind of a system where system modules can be added on with increased occupancy is definitely the way going forward. And I think definitely those are some of the aspects that we look at. I think at Krishna Consulting, we have been working closely with various government and private clients for buildings and for industrial applications also, where we have been looking at how water can be used more effectively. And to me, the key often involves a need for improvement in planning and also then ensuring that there is a clear allocation of accountability at the time that the system is handed over. And there is a lot of capacity building that needs to be done at the time of the initial planning and the design of the system, but also very, very importantly, as mentioned by one of the earlier panelists, at the operation and maintenance end, I think there is a need to ensure that the user is more aware and is better trained in order to ensure that they are utilizing the system in the right manner and ensuring that it is being operated as per design parameters. That itself will ensure huge savings from a point of view of both water and energy. Thank you.
So thank you. Very valid points, actually, Mr. Subramaniam. And in my own housing society, we have experimented with our water treatment facility a lot from using, I mean, because the knowledge is not there. And then finally, we all decided that we really need external help so that we stop using all the chemicals that we feel are going to give us the type of water quality we want. And so on. So understanding water from an engineering perspective and designing the correct systems does require detailed knowledge, and therefore, and there are technologies that can take us to the modularity that we want, so that we are not over designing. And to the point that you made about communication, that's very important. Communicating it, and I bring that back again to the the kind of experimentation that we did in our own housing society. Had we known, had we had the right support, perhaps our journey towards managing the water treatment facility that we have, we could have achieved results earlier. Is rather than
No, I mean, just to add on to what you're saying now. So I'm an engineer and I work for one of the leading engineering organizations in the world. But I say this very openly. I think that this problem is not really an engineering issue. I think the technology and the engineering part is perhaps the easier part to solve in this overall problem. The bigger problem which I saw in this slide, which Tarishi had mentioned as point 3, is I think the key part in terms of changing the mindset of the people and involving the community, and to raise what I call really the water literacy of the community. So people need to become more aware. They need to. I think the information is again easily available, but to bring in that to sort of address that gap between concern and then sort of knowing what they need to do and then actually practice it. And some of the measures like what Mr. Sandeep was mentioning in terms of sharing information with the community, and I think what is measured is what can be improved upon, is a cornerstone of all science. And making that aware, so if people feel that they are being held accountable, if people feel that they are being appreciated in some form and recognized for good work that they are doing in this area, that acts as a big spur. And overall, from a mindset point of view, I think we need to change our thought process of not looking at water as a commodity, but as a common resource that is available to all of us, that we have inherited together and that we need to pass on to our next generation. If that mindset can sort of get built in, all of the other part is somewhat easier to address.
So thank you so much. So with that, I will circle back to each one of you. So it's time now to circle back to Akash, with whom I initially started. So Akash, out of syllabus question for you. Is that okay? Okay, I can take that liberty. So basically, there's a lot of work that can be done around sustainable urban drainage systems that can really alter the groundwater. Okay, so there are a lot of my pet peeves. One is the extreme use of concretization that happens in township. And many of the new regulations are really focused on providing space for parking, uh, and so on. So there is a huge focus on concretization, landscape, landscape that is curated landscape, no native species, nothing. So these are some of my pet peeves. So how do we build up that, build up that saying that, drainage systems have to be designed in this way, that we should work with nature rather than against it, rather than relying on civil structures for stormwater management. So what are some of the solutions that you can propose?
Thanks, and very one of the most important aspect of water management, the rainwater, the biggest challenge not of our country but across the world, and one of the actually opportunities also, because rainwater is the only thing which can save us at the end. If managed properly, it can end all our scarcity level and stress levels basically. Now, when we talk about, interestingly, urban scape, the development of green areas and hard paved areas, one of the other challenge with rainwater is when we are designing as a MEP consultant or as a project owners, we only look for two solutions. As we said, as you started with that basic topic, one is recharging, and another one is reusing, out of sight and out of control, basically. However, the most easiest one and the most effective solution is managing rainwater through landscaping design, basically. That is the most easiest solution, which has always been there in the past with our ancestral knowledge and our ancestral designing, which we used to do. Basically, localized solutions, tapping the water where it falls, reducing runoffs, because the more it runs, the more polluted it gets, the more harder it gets to treat. Where it touches the ground, collect it, use it. Making sure the landscaping design is such that, obviously, hard paved area, reducing a hard paved area is one of the major challenge which we face nowadays. Everybody wants a hard paved at the end, and green area is not just for water, but air pollution is another thing which it tackles, which we do not understand. uh, Shifting back from aesthetical, not usable, using palm trees, to shading trees, trees which make sure that you have water across where you live, not just in their roots, but in the environment, increasing the moisture content, the garden areas. So rejuvenating the urban areas with these landscaping design is very important. And further taking on to the measurement side, which we were discussing, with regards to the water positive, which we are doing. And this is the most recent and the most interesting studies through the water audits which we have done. And the new thing which we are trying to implement through the water positivity and the audits is recharge well meters as well. So now, one of the challenge which we face in our country is we are recharging. How much going in, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Okay, I've built 100 square cubic meters of recharging pits, but nobody knows even 1 cubic meters goes in or not. So now people, with the auditing and water audit data and this, so now projects have come up to actually install a water meter at the recharging section itself. So now what they are claiming is actually verified in terms of, okay, I'm drawing out this much, so at least I'm putting back this much. Further, the quality is another issue in our country in terms of where you're recharging, how much you are recharging. Everybody is a recharging pit, but actually most of the projects do not know how much soil water can, how much soil the water will allow, how much water will go into the soil. The population tests are not done. So it's a basic challenge which we face with the systems which we design. With rainwater, there are multiple challenges, not just one. The infrastructure which we design, on the parameters which we design it, we always design, when we are designing electricity systems, energy systems, we design on peak values demands. But when we are designing rainwater system, we always turn to average rainwater, which doesn't make sense, because rain is not coming into your average rainfall which you are receiving. We need to start addressing flooding issues. Otherwise, you design instead of parking bays, we start designing boats parking space in our residential society as well, because 1 or 2 days you will have flooding in your campuses. You will need a boat at the end of the day, and that's there in all cities. Whether you take hilly region, whether you take desert, whether you take coast region, we have built such cities which are flooded, and that's one of the major challenge. But again, that's the solution. If you do rainwater management properly, it's one of the biggest solution which we have in our country. The location which we are located in India, because solution of water solutions, energy you can produce, water you cannot, and the water which you're getting, if you do not manage it properly, at the end we will run into scarce level basically. So lots of things on
Thank you.
rainwater.
Yeah, so we can go on at length on that on such and how to manage rainwater. And to the point, Akash, you're talking about not doing hydrogeological study and yet doing pits is a biggest mistake that most people do. How will you know where to recharge, how much to recharge, whether it has got a capability of recharging or not, whether doing that recharge will actually flood your basement? All of these are pertinent questions that needs to be asked. And if you skip that hydrogeological study and not employ the right hydrogeologist is also very important. You really need to understand the percolation rate and do it the right way. So thanks for bringing those points up, Akash. So with that, I would like to move to Sandeep ji. Sandeep ji, this question about metering, which you brought about, and there are a lot of solution providers. There are sonic meters, then meters that you know the normal conventional ones. Then there are smart meters. So there is a wide range of meters and metering solutions that are available. Most of them have a AMC associated, I mean, as opposed to the older meters, which don't have a AMC. It is a mechanical meter. It is put there and it runs for life. It has to be calibrated from time to time. But do you think there is a resistance that needs to be overcome around metering and metering solution and the AMC? People are not willing to put that 130 rupees per month for the AMC or the 75 rupees per month. So which is similar to not giving waste collection charges also. So there is a lot of resistance. So what do you think that can be done around the continuous costs of metering or smart metering that goes into homes nowadays?
One is the cost of meter itself.
Yeah.
Which we have found out actually it's very cheap to purchase the meters, but somehow now it has been phobia by different stakeholders. One cost of say 100 rupees meter, it has gone to 10 times or more than that, and it's generally available. If 1000 rupees is the cost, normally in Pune it goes to 10,000 rupees. And then everybody has that kind of the stakeholding in that 9,000 extra rupees. So if you go to the corporation, they will say 10,000 rupees is the per meter cost of the per meter. So and actually I have purchased it at very substantially low. There are lots of local, we have Pune sufficient know-how, engineering know-how, that it can be made much cheaper if it is done on a large scale, say in lakhs of meters. So that agency was also with us, but somehow the local authorities, they are more interested to have the money per meter. So this is one bottleneck which is created, that everyone has to think about metering. Unless and until we do metering, we are not going to have any proper solution. So metering has to be at a very substantially low cost. So what is today the problem is initial metering, and second, as you talked about, per month the recurring cost also. We have found out that is not also so costly if right technology, if it is used. I think it's so which with the mobiles and all technology available with us, we can get data immediately on smartphones, and it's very cheap that way. So I don't think cost is really that way matter. The problem is the mindset of the local bodies. They are more interested in making money out of it. Somewhere you have to spend. So leave this matter at least from the money making for water. Otherwise, okay, everybody is minting a money. Unless and until at least one or two, what you can say, large local bodies come up with the pioneer project and give the cost which is really feasible to each and every Indian individual, then it will become really as a national program. So this can be implemented. That's the problem, I think, for every common Pune, because it was tried in a Pune and failed. Metering was a very election issue also, metering of water, because of this all cost involved. So I think if we can come up with the proper costing, which is, I think everyone is ready to do metering. It's not Pune people are not ready for metering. We have luckily good population, which is which can easily understand the importance of metering. So this has to be somewhere at a proper level, has to be discussed and implemented, at least in one or two cities, which will show a good result. So this is my suggestion, my data.
Thank you so much. So over to Mr. Subramaniam. This question is specifically on tertiary treatment, and to the point that was made that in Singapore we drink the water which has been treated, right? And Singapore's water sufficiency is an example for everybody, and we can drink out of taps over there. You can take the bathroom tap water and drink it. So to the point of getting to that level in India, I mean, it's a question which is not an engineering question actually. We can get there with technology, but combination of technology and behavior. So what is your take on this? Yes.
Just before that, one sentence. Pune was having such kind of a water. I know my opened the tap and we were having same water was used for everywhere. So it's not in Singapore. Much before that, Pune had that kind of water. Over to you.
Yeah, so it's basically if you have the sewage water and you treat it and you do tertiary treatment and then drink that water. So there were cases that had come up in Bangalore that one housing society wanted to do that. So over to you, Mr. Subramanian.
As you correct, I have had a chance to drink new water in Singapore, and as you correctly said, it is very widely available everywhere. It is the thing to do. So children from a young age in schools are taught that it is absolutely fine and regular for them to drink that water without having any kind of a concern. So as you correctly said, the technology is currently available in India. So these are typically in most of these sewage recycling plants, where I would say Singapore and Israel are perhaps the two countries that have taken a lead. They look at a multi-barrier treatment technology, which will involve basically some kind of an ultrafiltration, followed by a reverse osmosis technology for making the water fit for drinking. So that kind of a technology is also commonly used in India in many cases, where you are recycling wastewater for an industrial application. So there are lots of industries recycle wastewater and use it for a critical application within their process or for their boiler or for other requirements within the industry. And that same technology is used. So it can very much be used for drinking also. So in India also, there are sewage recycling plants already where they recycle the water and then put it back into a river. So what is called indirect potable reuse. So places like Bangalore, for example, have been doing that commonly. And so the concern or the reason why it is not more widely used for drinking, I think, is more the psychological barrier which is there, and perhaps a related political barrier which has come out of that psychological barrier. At any point of time, so at this point of time, in most recycling, you go up to a certain stage, typically go up to ultrafiltration. If you add an additional stage and disinfect that water, it can very easily be used for drinking. And I can tell you that often that quality of water would be as good, if not better, than packaged drinking water, which is currently available in India. So the bottleneck or the hurdle is more perhaps the psychological barrier, which needs to be overcome. And that's not easy, definitely. So no easy answers there. But definitely, I think when one looks at total consumption of water, drinking water is perhaps a very small part of the overall water consumption. So even if we are able to recycle and reuse water for all non-potable requirements, I think it will have done its job. I think that itself would be a major accomplishment that we can work towards. So technology and engineering is there. Psychological barrier is perhaps not so easy to overcome, but we can make a beginning there by looking at using recycled water for all non-potable applications, and that is something that can be done immediately.
Sure, thank you so much. So with that, I would like to circle back to Gurmeet Singh Arora ji, especially in context of the kind of demand reduction in homes has to do with the behavioral aspects of the homeowners. So a lot of homeowners, if you have add-on aerators, remove it and say that they link it to the water pressure, pani nahi aata hai, slow aata hai, and so on. So the point that you had made earlier about products coming fitted with demand reduction, how would that pan out? Because I think general population still has resistance to and cannot correlate the water pressure to the actual usability of the water at which is less in volume through aerators. So how do you overcome that problem? How do we overcome this general tendency in homeowners throughout India?
Well, first important thing is education and awareness. We do not have any awareness in India about, as I had said, our water footprint. So we are working with the Ministry of Housing. I'm giving them some 40 different cartoons in the next few days, where we will work on small cartoons on education and awareness, also creating a nexus on energy and water and money. Okay, to show that if you save water, you can save money. Having said that, when we go to the Delhi, Bangalore, or Bombay airport, I'm not talking of the old Santa Cruz airport in Bombay because Dr. Sunita, you are also from Bombay. If you go to the Sahar airport, you will look at the sensor-operated taps where you hardly get any water. Not only is the water low flow, but it is foam flow. Now, when we use low flow fixtures, it is not necessarily discomfort to the user. We are talking about low flow fixtures with aeration. So you can still have a 10-minute shower, but you will save 30-40% water. Okay. So we are working on that basis because you see some of the aerators, like we have a pressure compensating aerator. Now that gives you a shower flow, and sometimes that splash on your wash basin comes onto you. And even my father was complaining, boss, I want to remove this in my own house. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is once it's inbuilt, for example, we are now looking at a full flush load of 4 liters and a half flush load of 2 liters, and it's working. As long as your flush tank and your bowl are aligned together. You can't have a different company's flush tank and a different company bowl, and then you'll be flushing 2 or 3 times and say, Indians anyway, they excrete too much, and therefore you have to flush 2-3 times. That is not the situation. The situation is I've met people from Morbi which are making these flush tanks 2 and 4 liters already in India. And Morbi is an unorganized sector, not like a Hindware or a Kohler or a Grohe or whatever. So there are available, what we are working on is foam flow, where you will not come to know, and you will see all the taps in the major airports. Now you put your hand under the tap and you will see there's a lot of air coming into your hand, okay? As if you already have soap on your hand. So that is not discomfort to the user, nor do you know that you're saving water. So what we are really working on is something different, but I want to add what we are doing in IGBC. We are working on the premise of net zero water in buildings. And we are working on this, that all new buildings by 2030 will be net zero on water. And by 2050, we will try and convert old buildings net zero. Now we have lots of meetings with people like IBIS. They say we'll treat our water, but where will we use it? Give it back to the municipal corporation. Okay. Mr. Sanjay Seth is sitting in Delhi. There is only 58% capacity to treat your sewage water. 42% treatment capacity is not there in Delhi. So anyway, untreated sewage goes into your Yamuna river. Okay, number one. Number two, out of all the plants, 27% are not working. So you can have an STP. Okay, secondly, what is happening is our cities are mushrooming. If you look at Navi Mumbai, you look at Mumbai metropolitan region, you look at the NCR region in Delhi, Gurgaon, Gurugram is going ahead, Noida is going into Greater Noida and further ahead. You need decentralized treatment plants where every drop of water is treated. It's not about consuming that water. It's about also making sure that whatever water goes into our oceans, lakes and rivers is fully treated, because we have 1 million microplastics in the sea for every square kilometer, and we are spreading cancer to ourselves. Now, a guy who doesn't have pan parag, doesn't have liquor, still gets cancer. Why? Is it the radiation level? I am also looking at radiation levels in green buildings, which is not our topic today. Because when you look at health and well-being, you can look at radiation levels also. You know, all of us are using laptops at home, work from home. Everybody has two cell phones. After all, some waves are going across, right? And the radiation levels are increasing. And there are towers all over, everywhere you see. And if you don't have network, you'll say, tower lagao. Mere building mein network nahi hai. So I am only coming to the fact that we have 4 ways to go net zero. One is education and awareness, very important in our society. To really educate people on how much they use, how much water they actually consuming. Second is to treat every drop of water. Singapore only treats 80% of its water. 80% of its fresh water comes from treatment, 20% comes from Johar River, and this agreement is till 2050. 40% is by desalination, 40% is by this new water plants. Rainwater harvest how much ever, because 98% of the runoff we do not even touch. It goes back into the streams and rivers and lakes. And fourth important thing is save at source 30-40%, because if you save 30-40%, you do not need to treat 30-40%, which is very expensive, and there are chemicals involved. Now, in our own green building center, we have a phytoremediation treatment plant. We have lots of buildings which are certified net zero on water in India. I do not need a municipal connection of water. I do not need a waste connection into the municipal sewer. I treat my own waste. I generate my own water. The Medicity Medanta Hospital in Delhi, in Gurugram, where Sanjay Seth is there, does not have a sewerage system. And the project director took me to the STP, put water in a glass and said, drink it. And I said, I can't drink your, sorry to use the word, cheap water, because it's coming from a hospital, and he drank it in front of me and then he made me drink another glass. That is the level of treatment that they're doing. So Singapore can do it, Medicity Medanta can do it, so can we. It's just our mindset. And as I said, we have no choice. You know, I'll talk to you in Greta Thunberg's own words. How dare you destroy my future? How dare you, Dr. Sunita, Sandeep, Akash, Subramaniam ji, how dare you? If she can say it, so can we. So let's be the change. Let's see how we can. We have now, in Indian Plumbing Association, I've started a Mahi wing, where we are in Pune, we have a Jeevit Nadi, which we are transforming to Jeevit Jal. Can we give life to every water body in this country? And we are already doing it in Bangalore, where we speak to residential societies, make them aware. It's called WOW. Water of something. It's one IGBC, one of my co-chairmen is leading this. And every week they have a webinar where they call residential society people from a certain locality and tell them about water, educate them about water, and slowly people listen. And now we are making people, you see, communities must look after the water bodies around them. You can have a garden and right there, sponsored by Mahindra Lifespace, sponsored by Tata, sponsored by Birla. Why can't we have a water body sponsored by Birla and Mahindra? Can you imagine what will happen? You have to create the awareness. So what I am trying to tell you is these 4 parts: education and awareness, rainwater harvesting, I mean, capturing all the water that God gives you free, treating every water grey or black, and reusing it for so many other applications other than drinking. Like Dr. Subramaniam said, what is your actual water footprint on drinking? 3 liters per head per day, including cooking. You drink 2 liters and you use 3 liters for cooking, 4 liters for cooking. But when you are consuming 150, 200 liters, then that 5 liter doesn't matter. Can we save on that 145 liters? Can we treat that 145 liters and use it for so many applications, cooling towers, gardening? Anyway, in green buildings, we use less water. We have native plants which require less water. But the fact is, we can become a water surplus country. It's only a mindset has to change and education has to be imparted. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome.
Otherwise, I'll go on and on.
No, we still have time. So, what I would like to do.
Can I tell you a small quote, Dr. Sunita, if you don't?
Yes, please.
You can calculate how much wealth you have by counting the things you have that money cannot buy. And one of them is Jal, part of Jal, Vayu, Agni, Akash and Earth. Thank you.
Yes, so यही 5 तत्वों का खेल है जो हम भूल जाते हैं.
Yes.
So the 5 elements, and we forget that, and we chase everything else but the 5 elements. I mean, we don't have to chase the 5 elements. We have to just harness and be conscious. So that's very important. So for each one of you, and we can start with Gurmeet Singh ji, then Subramaniam ji, then Sandeep, and then Akash. Just ponder on the theme, making the invisible visible. And what would your message be in, say, 1 or 2 sentences? So just ponder on the theme of this World Water Day, making the invisible visible. And what would be your message? So, Arora ji, aapse shuru kar.
The most invisible thing is the Almighty. We are so insane in India that we take a rock, build 4 walls around and start praying to that rock. Or a photograph. I'm not talking of any religion here. So man and women are the most insane species. Talking about invisible and visible. They pray to an invisible God and destroy a visible nature, not knowing fully well that the nature they are destroying is actually the God they are praying.
Wow.
So look after the visible and not the invisible.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really amazing. Thank you. Subramaniam ji.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I think that was a nice context given by Gurmeet ji. Another context in the framework of invisible visible to me is making information or knowledge about water more widely available. Right now, I think a lot of us at a very broad level know we should save water, we should recycle water, but what exactly is happening, that kind of a data is not readily available. And if we can make that information sort of hold a mirror in front of each of us and make that visible to us as to what is actually the current status and what is possible, I think that can spur on a lot of action. And to me, the whole context of making invisible visible is in terms of making water information at a very micro, practical level available to all of us in order to make the right decisions.
Thank you. Very valid. Absolutely. So data is the king and it can drive action. So thank you, Subramaniam ji. Over to you, Sandeep.
Sandeep, you have to unmute.
My both points is already covered by both of you.
I was expecting
I don't
you
have
to
to
say
say
that.
anything here.
No,
Data
but you
was
have
my
made
most important.
water visible by water metering, so you can say something about that.
That's what. Yes, I already said data is important, and I again believe that data is the most important to make invisible visible. No, lucky, or we don't have that in entire our society. We don't have that kind of attitude of data gathering. So attitude right from top, right from say builder to the common man, we don't have that kind of attitude. If that attitude somehow we are able to mm, do it with that uh, germination of that attitude is most important to make invisible visible. Thank you.
Thank you. Akash.
One of the major challenge which we face in not just architecture and lifestyle and everything is uh, the two favorite keywords, control C and control V. Those are the two things which hamper everything what we do, not just sustainability, everything which we do. The only thing which
That is, sorry, I can't resist laughing.
uh, if we want to
Control C.
literally be sustainable,
Control
we
C and
need to
Control V.
control C and control V is one of the things which hampers everything which we do. Innovation, sustainability, everything basically. Also, one of the area which we are discussing, our ancestral knowledge is the key. Looking inwards and going backwards, that is the key to solutions. Instead of looking or aping the West, and that's the aping the West is what I was going for. Control C and control V basically. It's good to know the technologies, good to know what we have because it's our problems which we have created, and it's our solution which will work. We can't look to outside world to give us solutions because they do not know our problems. It's ancestral knowledge with the modern technologies together can help you. Only technologies will not help you. Only knowledge will not help us. And control C, control V is the bad thing to do as such in anything which we are doing. Sorry, can't help it.
Yes, Subramanian.
So I think in that context, so control C, control V is perhaps is a problem. Control S is the solution. So it's how we can save water and
Yes.
save energy, which comes along with that as a key part. The other element, Dr. Sunita, that was coming to my mind, I think, is to look at how we can make water a part of our educational curriculum in a more effective manner. I think if we can start off by teaching our children in a better manner in terms of how they can save water, uh, how they can recycle water, how they can be more aware in terms of the value of water, in a sense. I think that will be a big part of the solution going forward.
So
One
thank you.
more thing.
Yes.
काम
Sandeep.
वाली बाई.
हम तो इस सेशन में हंस रहे हैं बहुत ज्यादा. So काम वाली बाई is very key, integral to water management.
We actually have a data. So that is more wastage than the entire household. You can just measure and you can take this data also the in terms of the utensils or even clothing. Kamwali buys waste is much more.
So
But if the Kambali Bai is good looking, is the waste more?
I cannot comment.
Because I quote that all the time that she's flirting with her servants and then goes away 200 liters of water. You know?
so valid point, absolutely. So I would like to therefore summarize some of the things. I think there is so much we can do, and then so much of it is free knowledge, right? It is not that people are holding on to knowledge. It is about the intent. The first thing is about the intent to get the intent right. Second is about awareness, or we should put awareness, sensitization ahead, and then the intent, and then look at technology solutions, metering, data, okay, and then use nature to help you through, right? Because many of these solutions can be through nature-based solutions, through the right kind of trees, to ensuring that the percolation is happening, ensuring unnecessary concretization is not happening. So I will just summarize this whole thing in 4 points. It's awareness, intent, measurement and monitoring, and work with nature. So that would actually help us, come up with a more water secure India. more water secure world and for our future generations. So with that, we can actually wrap up. We are well ahead of time. So Tarishi, if you're around, you can just take it up. We can close the session. Thank you, everybody. I mean, thank the panelists, and I have made a promise to myself that I'm going to meet each one of you virtually, and Sandeep ji, I will meet you in person. So, and wherever Gurmeet Singh ji, wherever you are based, Sandeep and Subramaniam ji, wherever you are based, maybe when I'm traveling, I will, walk in. There is so much to learn. Akash, so anyway, I travel. So, so I've made that note to myself. ये इनसे सबसे मिलना है. So, Tarishi, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, today we have now come to the end of our webinar. I would like to thank all the panelists and the participants for joining us today. Indeed, the discussion and the points which were put forward by all the speakers, they were very fruitful, they were very informative, and there are many significant points that were made by the speakers, and that will definitely guide us to strengthen our efforts towards our goals. And we're going to now share the report also with you post the webinar. I once again wish everyone a very happy World Water Day. Thank you very much and have a good day. Namaskar.
Thank you all.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.